Welcome to the Tokunbo Chronicles, a podcast about the journeys we take and the stories we make. In this podcast, I'll be sharing moving stories that are sure to empower, educate, and entertain you. Stories have an incredible way of connecting us to one another, uplifting us, and giving us permission to tell our own story. I will be speaking to entrepreneurs, trailblazers, and dreamers who have incredible and powerful stories to share. From their triumphs and tribulations, we'll be drawing out the details, the how-tos, and the lessons we can take away. Life is what you make it, and only you get to decide how your story is written. I hope by sharing these stories with you, you will live inspired and equipped to live yours out unapologetically. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the chronicles. I am your host and chief storyteller, Tokunbo Chronicles, a multi-passionate entrepreneur, founder of the award-winning Tokunbo's Kitchen and London African Food Week. When I'm not cooking up a storm in the kitchen or regaling guests with my own epic stories, you are most likely to find me in the middle of the dance floor, bringing the party to life. Welcome back to the Tokunbo Chronicles. In this episode, I am speaking with Nastassja Lusengo, founder of the Indulgent Sugar Plum Cake House, where she creates cakes that inspires conversations. Nastassja shares her childhood dream of becoming a doctor after seeing the devastating effects of her nan's stroke. However, much to her mom's dismay, Nastassja then switched and chose to study fashion instead, and was actually working towards her goal of becoming a fashion designer before pivoting to baking. As a child, growing up in a Zimbabwean family in the UK, having cake and tea on Sundays was a weekly routine, but not something she felt would eventually pursue as a career. As a child, Nastassja also shares that she was perceived to be talkative, but her nan would find interesting and innovative ways that gave her an outlet to nurture that energy in more creative ways. After 4 years of working for her dream company, Diesel, Nastassja was pushed and encouraged to develop her natural flair and love of baking into a business during an appraisal meeting with the HR manager. This manager apparently was so frank with Nastassja, she told her she did not see fashion as part of her future. Later on, Nastassja also turned down an opportunity to work with Vogue, as this was the final push she needed to commit her full energy into growing her brand. If you want to see how Ms Sugar Plum creates her masterpieces, catch her on Channel 4's Extreme Cake Makers, currently online where she's a key feature, and later this spring on Food Network Canada's show, The Big Bake. But right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the chronicles with Nastassja Lusengo. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Tokunbo Chronicles. I'm so excited to have you back, and I'm so excited to have the amazing, lovely Nastassja Lusengo on the couch with me on the sofa today. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background and just kind of also let her tell us about herself. So I first met this amazing woman on a panel last year. Was it last year or earlier this year?
It was earlier this year. It feels like last year already. It's
yeah.
Already, because towards the end of the year.
So for people who are not watching this in real time, and obviously this is going to be shown a few weeks after recording, we are now in December 2019, which is why obviously we are in this kind of like outfit, and I'm just like, I'm so over this weather. Yeah. But anyways, moving on. We met on the panel, and one of the things that I loved when you was talking about your brand. So you are the founder of the Indulgent Sugar Plum. And for people who might think, oh, Indulgent Sugar Plum, oh, what is that? What's that all about? It's about cakes.
Yeah.
But you don't see yourself as a baker.
No, not at all.
And you know what you said on the panel, which just really was like, oh my God, I need to meet this woman. I need to learn about her. You said, I'm not a baker, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Can you kind of like tell us a little bit about why you say that about yourself, about your brand, about the cakes that you make, and what makes you feel that you stand out from the people in the market, and what elevates you from being a baker to being an artist?
Okay, so the Indulgent Sugar Plum, trying to squeeze the story into as much as I can, like really condense it, compact. I started baking. I've always baked, to be quite fair. Like my family background, we're from Zimbabwe, and anybody who is from Zimbabwe or understands Southern African kind of culture, cake and tea, like whenever you go around to somebody's house, they always offer you cake and tea. Like it's a thing.
Remnants of the colonial masters.
We love like cake and tea.
Do you know, I actually have a sim book called The Boy Next Door.
Yeah.
And I think there's patterns that when cake and tea seems to be a fixture.
Yeah,
okay.
so cake and tea is like a thing back home. And even like when my family came to this country, it's something that I've grown up with. Like on a Sunday, have like cake, tea, and just like, we just a family, just literally cake and tea is a thing. And anytime we have visitors around, cake and tea, you know.
So I should be coming more often to your house.
Exactly. And so as a child, I always had cake and tea, and baking has always been a thing within my family. My mum's a food scientist.
Oh, wow.
And so food has always been such a huge thing. And like I said, cake is something that we really, really adore. So kind of fast forwarding, growing up and having like my first like full-time job, 9 to 5, I worked for Diesel in the head office, and I still love to bake. So I remember there was a moment where I first started, and they always used to talk about the last receptionist and how the last office manager was amazing and they loved her. And I was just like, man, and somebody said to me, like, you need your thing. And I was just like, I need my thing. And in my head, I was just like, oh, I just want people to like me. And,
so you're a bit of a people pleaser.
And not even a people pleaser. It was kind of just like,
you just wanted to fit in.
I just wanted to fit in. It's a new culture, and I'm a huge Diesel fan. Funnily enough, I'm wearing a Diesel shirt. Like, that's how much I love Diesel. Like, even before working for the brand, I actually wanted to work for the brand. So when I got this job, it was like, bam, like I'm working for one of my dream companies, right? So funny enough, like just one day, I brought in cake, and I offered my colleague some, and my colleague was like, man, Nastassja, this cake is amazing. Like, she had this like whole, like, I've never tasted cake. Like in my head, I was just like, fam, it's simple cake. It's simple cake. But
do you remember what the cake was that you baked?
It was just a Madeira cake.
Okay.
It was just a Madeira cake, because I used to do at home was like on a Saturday, like the first part of my Saturday was always spent baking a cake for the Sunday, like for our Sunday tea at home. So we had cake left over. So I literally just bought some cake in on a Monday, and I offered my colleague some, and she was like, this is amazing. And so it kind of, so every Monday, because like during the week I never baked. So every Monday I used to just bring in a cake, and I used to share it with her, and it became a thing for us. Okay. And then what she did was share it with one of her friends in the office, and that hit the road running, and it became a thing in Diesel. Like I used to bring in cake, and we used to call it Cake Mondays, and everybody in the office started. And so it became not just baking something at home, but baking something for the office. Sure. But it was never any skin off my back, because it's something that I've always really enjoyed. I don't see cake as a chore. So where it then kind of started to spread in the office, they started asking me to do stuff in like for in-house events, and it kind of just naturally, it was a very organic process of it growing within the office. And then it was when somebody else who worked for the radio station came in, because like their manager used to order cupcakes for them at the radio station. She was like, you need to do this as a business, like you'd be amazing. And I was just like, hell no. Like cakes are at that point I was like, cakes are lame, they all look the same. Ooh. I'm not trying to be a cake maker. But she was like, I think you're really onto something here. And so it was kind of from there where people are slowly saying to me, like, this is really cool, you should do it. But I didn't really have the balls to go out there and do it. And it was only a conversation with my HR manager at the time, who was Zoe, and I always big her up for this. She sat me down, and we were having a review about where I wanted to go. I'm in Diesel now. This is like 4 years in Diesel. What do you want to do? She knew where I wanted to be. Yeah. She was like, I still want to do my fashion stuff. So I have a fashion and art background. I was like, I want to get into the fashion. I want to go into this and this and this. And she was like really honest. She was like, Nastassja, it's not going to happen like that. Ooh. And I was like, and she was like, that's not, I don't want to sugarcoat. Like, she was like, no pun intended, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for you. This is not going to really happen for you here. But what can happen out of here, and something that I've seen from you, is you're a very talented baker. Everybody in this office, there's no person in this office that does not like your cake. Even the people that don't like you, they love your cake. I've seen them loving your cake. I want you, and she basically told me that she wants me, she would love for me to pursue that as a career. And she was like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I was like, well, it doesn't work out and I become like a receptionist or come back to admin or administration. She's like, that's cool. But the one thing that you've done is try.
Yeah.
So out of that conversation, she actually gave me the balls to actually go out and do it. And it was when I started exploring like caking and kind of just like, I went into it like, I was just like, okay, she said this to me. She was very honest. And I appreciate that conversation so much because you do not get honest people like that. Like, you don't get them.
Yeah.
They're very minimal in this world.
Yeah.
But she gave me such an honest, she gave me her full honesty, and that's what I heard. I heard her honesty, and I was like, okay, if Zoe believes I can do this, then there's something I can do from here. And so I left Diesel and I said to her, like, as much as I really, really want to stay, I want to go to somewhere else, less hours, more money. And she was like, cool, I'm gonna help you do that. So she was very helpful with me in that. And like literally what happened next was just discovering my cake self. And so building upon that. So
before you go on to kind of like getting into how you got into cake, I still really want to explore a little bit more about who you were before you got into cake.
Okay.
And, you know, kind of like you talked about your passion of, you know, cakes as part of the family culture. Talks about, you know, obviously coming from an immigrant family, living in Zimbabwe, then moving here to the UK. What was that transition like? How old was you? Where did you grow up when you moved from Zim to the UK? How did you kind of like go into the transition of coming from a culture like Zim, Southern Africa, to now being here in the UK, where I'm sure there would have been some similarities, but quite a lot of huge differences as well.
Like, first off, I was only, like, literally, I was born in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
But I came here when I was 1. So the culture of experiencing what it's like to grow up in Zimbabwe, I didn't have that.
Sure.
But what I do have is that culture being immigrated to come into the UK. I grew up, obviously, in a very British Zimbabwean household, but that's, if I'm being honest, when I went back to Zimbabwe when I was about 8 years old, the first time being back in Zim, one thing I realized that the culture, where the culture I've grown up in my house, like in the UK, was no different from the culture
Really?
going back to Zim.
Wow.
And it's a very English, like,
that's
you know, like
interesting.
Zimbabwe is a part of the British Empire. I mean, it's very like when people ask me like, what's the most Zimbabwean dish? It's like rice and chicken, potatoes. Like it's very kind of like we did embrace the British lifestyle. Very like. Very easy.
See,
like
it's
that.
so interesting because obviously, I mean, I'm from Nigeria. I was born here, but I grew up in Nigeria first. And in terms of food and Nigerian culture, Nigerian has a very, very unique identity, even though we were also colonized by the British and ruled by the British Empire for a very long time. Yeah. But I mean, I remember growing up, and even when I came back to the UK, really struggling to acclimatize to British food because it was so foreign to what I had experienced growing up in Nigeria. So that's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Zimbabwe has its identity. Like in terms of food, we eat sadza, which you guys call fufu. Like sadza, muriwo, greens, nyama. Like that's meat, veg, and sadza. Like that is a Zim staple.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And even moving my family, like moving here from Zim, I grew up still eating that food.
Yeah.
So when I went to Zimbabwe, I think the only culture shock for me was like, there was a lot of insects and I was just never used to that. It was just like, wow, you know, like you guys, like y'all are like, there's like cockroach. I'm used to like a small cockroach. I'm seeing cockroaches like giant size. That's what was a culture shock for me. Like literally in that way, in terms of food, it wasn't really a culture shock that way, because we still had tea, we still had cookies, we still had biscuits. Like there was still tomato ketchup was still on the table. You know what I mean? Yeah. There was other small things like that my family. I mean, I saw my family cooking at home, but then going to Zim, they were like, "Do you like okra?" And I was like, "I don't do the slimy stuff, thanks." And they would call me very British for that. They'd be like, "Oh, your child is very British because she doesn't eat the kind of okra." And I'm not a huge fan of cabbage. I've never been a huge fan of cabbage, and they like over in Zim, like everybody loves cabbage. I'm like, I like greens. Like, don't cook me cabbage. Sure. Like, that was the main difference in terms of like the culture shock. But in terms of how I was raised, it was still very much like, it was still very Zim in my household. The only difference is I would say, like, going back to Zim, they didn't have the access in terms of like, oh, you can get pocket money and do this and this and this. Whereas that's what, you know, I was exposed to in terms, because growing up in a British society and culture, you know, you go to school and your friends are like, my mum gives me pocket money for this, and you're just like, my mum, like, and then you go home and go, money? Yeah, you know, what's and that? You go, and in my head it's just like, pocket money, okay, and so you go home and go, Mummy, can I get some pocket money? And she's like, pocket what? Pocket what is, you know? But obviously, knowing that, I think my family just knew, like, being exposed, mixing with like British children and being a part of the British culture, we do things, they will expose me to things that I've never been exposed to. So, but in terms of like the culture shock of like going back to Zim, I mean, to be quite fair, when I first went back to Zim after 8 years, I absolutely loved it. And I wished that I had grown up there, because the sense of community was so different. Like, you know, I could go to my next door neighbor's house and sit there and have cake and tea, and they could come round to mine and have cake and tea. There's something about
cake and tea for you, isn't there?
Yeah, like literally. And that's the afternoon kind of thing, you know. Whereas in London, we didn't really do that. We did, but we didn't. It wasn't like that. There was so many kind of barriers. Whereas like there is much more when you go to Zim, there's much more sense of everybody in the community is raising you, because like, you know, you'd have your next door neighbor come down and say, "Ah, so your child go there."
Sounds like Africa. Sounds like Nigeria.
Whereas in London, you could never do that. Yeah, you could say that. "Oh, I saw your child." Yeah, a parent would be like, "So why are you watching? Do you know what your child is doing?" Yeah. But in going back there and realizing how much of the sense of community and, you know, meeting like family, cousins for the first time. Obviously they know you as a baby, now they're meeting you as that I definitely felt like I missed that. And I missed that part of like just growing in that kind of community. But in sense of like growing up here now, being here, I've always been very artistic. Like it's something like art was introduced to me in various different ways as a child.
Okay. What are some of the ways?
I grew up with my grandmother.
Okay.
My mum had me in her early 20s, end of teens, early 20s. So I grew up with my grandmother a lot of the time whilst my mother was studying. So I've always been a very talkative child. And so one of the ways that my nan found it was not to silence me, to say like, "Oh my gosh," it's just like, this girl has so many questions, like literally. And
when's your birthday?
My birthday is April 25th. I'm a Taurus.
Okay.
So I'm like talkative and I'm very inquisitive about stuff. And it's still something that I am till this day. I'll watch a program and then I'll find myself researching about a program and be like, "Oh, that's interesting." Like a walking encyclopedia in that way. And so one of the ways she found to silence me and to try, instead of her saying to me, because she found that a lot of people in my family would always say to me, "Oh, be quiet, you're talking too much." And she didn't like that. Okay. What she wanted, and she noticed that if I silence her, she's just being inquisitive. She just wants to know.
Yeah.
How can I translate, you know, where can I put that energy? So instead of her silencing me, she found things to occupy me. And the way she occupied,
sounds
you know, instead of giving me a book to read, because she knew I could read all these books, close the book and say, but Nan, in this book, this happened. So she literally introduced me to sewing, colouring books, word searches, crosswords. And because she, her line of work was, she worked with the council and working with children from a disabled background.
Yeah.
So in her times of train travel, instead of which we would have all of these amazing conversations, but obviously her mind is just like, man, this child can't talk. I can't keep up. But one and something that she loved to do was like cross stitching and stuff. So she'd buy all of these magazines. What she'd do before a journey should take me to the corner shop and should buy like these magazines, colouring in, she word searches and all of these like cross stitching, and she'd be like, which magazine do you want? And I would choose my magazine. She'd be like, okay, get the colouring in book. And she'd have my pencil case. So she bought me pencil cases, bought colouring books and all of these things, and she just would have a conversation at the beginning of the train journey, and then after she'd be like, okay, Nastassja, I want to do word search, what do you want to do? And then I'd be like, colouring in, and she'll be like, okay, here's your colouring in book, I'm gonna do mine, you're gonna,
and that was like quiet time,
and I
very
got
strategic.
and I got so engrossed in doing all of these different artistic, at the time I didn't know it was it's an artistic flair, but I got so engrossed in doing colouring in and word searches to the point that I would finish these books. And then I'd be like, Nana, finished. I want another one. And she'd be like, oh my God. Like,
this is meant to last the whole train ride.
But then what I started doing is, I finished the book now, the colouring in book. And I'd be like, Nana, finished and I want to colour something else. And she'd be like, okay, choose your favourite picture and draw your favourite picture. That's where my artistic, because then I was just like, wow, I enjoyed that so much. Let me redraw the picture and then colour it in my way. And that was when my nan opened, it's like she opened up this whole new world to me that I didn't realize. And from there, it's like I love doing small bits of all of these little things like colouring in, drawing. Then she opened up a passion of doing cross stitch, which is just like you get, like, it's like tapestries. So, and basically you have different threads and you learn different stitches and you create an image just using cross stitching, and I loved it. And she enrolled me like in primary school. I remember when we had clubs after school. She wanted to enroll me in like physical activities, but I wasn't excelling. Like she always thought, let's do her PE, because I was an overweight child. So she was like, give her exercise. And I wasn't cutting. I wasn't trying to cut those. I enjoyed stuff like rounders and cricket, anything kind of that. But athletics, no, we're not. I wasn't trying to. But then they opened up a sewing club. And she enrolled me into the sewing club. And even like
how old was you? Do you remember?
I was in about year 4.
Okay.
So it was like
about
for the
8,
high
9?
year, 8, 9, like the first time I went back to Zimbabwe. So it was around that time, and I absolutely loved it. Even like my sewing teacher was just like, she's gonna excel in this. This is, because she understands color. She really wants to try at the most difficult things, and I love doing stuff like that. So just growing up, like, that was my artistic flair. In other senses, other things that I liked is I was a real science buff. And when my nan fell ill, she had an accident at work, and she suffered a stroke. So it was very devastating for me, because I've always known Nan as the active person. We went on long walks together. Sure. She took me to the cinema and all of this. And to see her just lying in bed, like, killed me inside. And I was just like, she's got to be better. And I made it, I said to her, I remember saying to her, I'm going to make it my life's mission to make you better. Now I want to be a doctor. And
how old was you then? Do you remember?
I was still very young. I was, can't remember how, I was still in primary school. So I was still very young, probably roughly just before the whole artist stuff. So probably just earlier on, like 6, 7. Okay. So I really just wanted to be like, as much as I was doing all the artistic stuff, my main thing was I want to be a doctor because I want to make my nan feel better. And if I can make, and it was the fact that when my nan started getting better, I was like, if I can make my nan feel better, I can make everybody in the world feel better. So I wanted to be a doctor. So I ran with that, even though I was still doing art stuff. Art stuff was like my
fun
time.
passion.
Yeah, it was like my time for myself, like my time away from all the mad activity from the world is something that I love to do. And on top of that, like my uncle, who was also an artist, like he really pushed that side of me, and like one of like still till this day, unfortunately, like he was incarcerated for such a long time of me, like all of my growing up he was incarcerated, but what we actually shared through his incarceration of being in prison was he always wrote me a letter each week, and each week he sent me a letter with a picture, and I used to send him the same. He would ask me how my art skills were and would exchange that. And that for me was such a huge connection with my uncle, because like if it wasn't for him, I don't think I really would want to be the artist that I am today, and having that kind of someone so far from you that you can't see. And my uncle, like I loved him, like he was a dad to me basically, and he really just inspired me to be an artist because he was amazing. Like his work was phenomenal, and we've got a massive mural that he painted at my grandma's. So that having that connection. So throughout my college, like my secondary school years, I wanted to be a doctor, which to my mum's delight was like, yes, like anybody from an African background, if you say you want to be a lawyer, banker, a doctor, they're like, praise the Lord,
praise
like,
the Lord, yeah,
you know. And I had that real kind of real kind of passion to be a doctor. I can't tell you what happened. All I know is I did at the final years of my GCSEs, being in year 10, 11, I don't know what happened. I just had two art teachers that I completely adored, and that really that opened my eyes up to art again in a way that it'd never been opened before. And that just awoken. I don't know what it is, like when I'm in my artist zone, I know I can create anything that I think of. And that for me, when I get lost into, I don't even say lost into that world, that is my spirit. Like when I'm working, like it was just kind of like, I love this. This is love.
It's very intuitive for you.
Yeah. Not that being a doctor isn't, because I still have that sense of like, I still want to look after people. I still want to make them feel better. I love to research about science. I research about like crazy shit, like in my spare time. Like I'll research about diseases that I'm just like, I don't even know why I'm researching it, but it sounds amazing. Like, you know, I still have that. But art is something completely different. That's me speaking from, that's hot. Like it's just it's a way I can speak to people without having to have a conversation.
I like that.
I don't have to speak to you for you to, like, when you see a piece of my artwork, you can interpret that in all different kind of ways. And that's what I loved about art. Yeah. It was a voice. It gave me a voice where I didn't have a voice. Yeah. And there were certain things that I couldn't express growing up that art gave me a new way to express that. It gave me that voice. So when I then decided in my teen years that, no, sorry, Mum, I don't want to be a doctor. I'm going to be an artist. She was just, it was like her
devastated.
Worst. She was devastated. And I think she's only, I mean, like, not giving away my age, like in my now 30s, she's only overcoming that and realizing that, yeah, she actually isn't going to be a doctor. She actually, well, to be honest, the other day, like a couple of months ago, I was just like, I probably still want to go into medical science, but I want to do it in a different way. I don't know how I can integrate that into my life now, but it's just like something I'm still, so it's a phenomenon for me.
I mean, there's so much to unpack in like your life story, but some of the key features that seems to come out is, you know, family values and growing up in a very close-knit family, you know, the relationship that you had with your nan and how she kind of really encouraged your spirit. So whilst there were other families who were like, you know, be quiet, don't talk too much, she found a different way for you to be expressive without talking.
I mean, I'm definitely like, when I decided that I wanted to do art, she was one of the people that silenced my mom. Like, she was just like, nobody chose. She was just like, look, nobody chose what you wanted to do. I wanted you to do something different from food science, but I didn't make that choice for you. Let her choose what she wants to do. If this is what she said she wants to do, this is where her heart lies. And
it's so important to have adults that believe in us, or people, not even adults. I mean, you also mentioned the lady at the diesel that worked in HR, and how she believed so much in you that she literally drove you out of that job.
It's kind of like
your own business.
It's crazy, because some, like, when she was saying it to me, I was like, are you some sort of op? Do you really not want me here? But at the same time, it was kind of just like, well, something she said,
for you.
One thing she actually said is she saw a lot of her in me. She saw that, you know, she explained the story of like her saying that she wanted to do all of this stuff, but she didn't because she was too scared to do it. And now in her later age, that she wished she would have done it, and she wasn't fearful, because now she understood that there was going to be, if it didn't work out, there was always going to be another route. And something she said to me is like, nothing can ever not work out. It's about your determination to do it.
I like that.
And so when she said that to me, she was just like, she was just like, please, Nastassja, don't be me. I want you to be the best. And I like big her up. Like, anytime someone interviews me, I have to mention Zoe Walters, because I even, you know, I send her messages all the time and say, thank you so much for that push, because she is rare. Yeah. She's a really rare person. And she was, you know, when I said to my family, this is what I wanted to do, they were just like, I don't know if you're going to be able to, like, there was all this kind of, can you do it? Like, I don't think it's something you should be doing. And my mum was always kind of very nervous. And I now understand it. She didn't speak. She didn't say the words, but now I understand where her nervousness came from. And my mum was just like, oh, she always wanted me to be a doctor because she felt that was a secure job. Not in terms of, I want you to status and that. She was really talking about the underground racism. She was like, I know you're talented. You were talented when you were doing your fashion course. I saw it. I saw people taking your designs and using them for their own. But the fact is, she just didn't want to say, baby girl, you're a little black girl. Nobody's going to hear a little black creative girl like you. They're not going to see your voice. What they're going to be like is, you ain't white. And that's what she was trying to shield me from. And now I understand. She didn't have, I think, couple of years ago she said it to me, and she was like, yeah, well, you know, like, you know, not everybody likes a black creative girl and black talented one, even that you know, and I didn't want you to feel like, I didn't want you to experience the disappointment that she had experienced, especially being a food scientist and being a minority. Like, she was like, I was, you know, there was only 2 black people in my course over, you know, and I didn't want you to experience that. But you want to experience, you want to be this artist, you know, artist. And one of the things she always said to me, she said to me once, artists only make money when they die. And then I was like, and if I said to her, well, so be it. You know, but it was a so be it to say, I'm going to prove you wrong. You know, and so looking back at like my route to where I am now, it's been crazy. But one thing is, the reason coming to why I don't call myself a baker is that baking has always been something very organic for me. And there are people that I will pinpoint and say, yo, that's a baker, you know. For me, I'm an artist with the canvas of baking.
Oh, I like that. Ooh, wait. Let's just marinate in that. Say that again, please.
I am an artist with the canvas of a baker. That's what I am.
I love it.
And when I say that, it's not saying that, but Nastassja, yes, you do bake cake. Yeah, I do. That's the base.
Medium of
that's the medium. That's the base. It's like, if I was an artist, if I just did art just without the baking, my canvas would be like, it would just be pulled over a wooden frame, and whatever, it'd be paper, it'd be whatever I could pick up. But the reality is, I've married something that's so traditional, and something that has so much value within my culture, my family, and I've given myself a canvas to probably to express myself. But I always say to people, it's not what's on the outside is only to attract you to the healing that's on the inside.
Ooh.
For me, cake isn't just like, oh, I'm going to eat it and it's nice. Cake is something that when I put my cakes down on a centerpiece, has a centerpiece or in the middle of a table, it brings people together. Food is, for me, what I found with my food or with cake is it can be just as healing as me being a doctor. And me wanting to be the person that makes people feel better, I've kind of come to this concept, or I gathered this concept that what I do is I bring people together and I make you feel good within that cake. So when as much as you, like we say in African Black culture, we say like the chicken is sweeter as you get to the bone, and that's the same with my cake. It gets sweeter as you get to the center of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I really put that emphasis and say I am an artist. What I create is only a one-time thing. It's one of those things where it's going to be eaten in the end.
Yeah.
It's not going to be around for like it's not going to physically be around for 10, 15, 50 years. What's going to be around is the memory of you eating that. How did you feel when you ate that? I want to be the first thing on your lips and the last thing on your lips, you know, through the conversations that you have, through seeing my cakes, through experience. So for me, my cakes are an experience.
Yeah.
And I've married everything that I love to do into this one kind of canvas thing.
And I think that's what really makes your cake stands out. Because I mean, I know I like to think I'm a bit of a cake connoisseur. I am. I'm a cake snob.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
I love that.
Just
I love that.
anybody's cake.
Yeah.
And I do judge cakes by its cover. I judge everything by its cover.
Let's be honest. Everything is judged by
exactly.
by
Like people try to pretend it's not.
Yeah,
but
no. The reality is
right?
like you feast with your eyes first.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know.
And I think one of the things that when I met you and you said what you said about you not being a baker and an artist, I was like, who is this woman? How is she so bodacious? And then obviously learning about your fashion background as somebody who also loves fashion, I was like, okay, wow, this. For somebody to be this artistic in terms of being creative in the fashion and then moving into cakes and then seeing the cakes that you create.
Yeah.
And like you said, each cake is unique. There's no like, oh, Nastassja, can you recreate me the cake that you made for so and so?
It's
so can you kind of talk us through that process? How do you go about developing a cake for that person? So if I was to come to you and say, it's my birthday and I want you to create a cake for me, or I want you to bake a cake for me.
Yeah.
What would that, do you have like a consultation? How do you decide, okay, this is the cake I'm going to create for Tokunbo that's going to be different from the last cake that you created?
Okay, so one of the things that I really take on board is that everybody is different and everybody's an individual. I can't treat two people the same. And I think people don't know this, but it is a bit, I don't like saying it's my pet hate, but when somebody says to me, oh, I want you to create the same cake that you did for Lucy. And I'm just like, girl, Lucy's a different person than you. You don't like what Lucy likes. You think you do, but the reality is you don't. So I like to have a conversation with my clients, whether it's just over email or just like we're doing now. I think the conversation and listening and hearing and seeing the person is also such a great help. Like when I do have like wedding consultations, it's great to see the couple and to really get an essence of what they're like and really just take in their essence and their spirit at that precise time. When it's somebody who's ordered off just from my order form, it's really getting a lot of information and I need a lot of information. So I really need like your inspiration, your color scheme and anything really. And I think as an artist first, I don't really look at other cakes for inspiration. What I do is I ask them, for anything that they like. You could say to me, Nastassja, like you're saying you want a cake from me, and you're like, I will ask you, just show me some inspiration. What things do you like? You could be like, I like this. I like this piece of fabric, and it could be a really kind of satin. It could have some sort of embroidery, and kind of building up from there. So I've heard what you're saying, and what it is just taking small bites in a moment. And I do this thing where for me, I don't know what I'm going to create for you. So when some people say to me, so what are you going to do on the spot? I'm like, girl, all I know is I'm going to go home and have some food tonight, and I need to watch this documentary, and then that's it. And that's for me, the creative process for me is allowing myself to have nothing in mind and continue my day as normal. But then what tends to happen is, as I'm making your cake, and when I say making your cake, it's from the time that I've taken the butter out of the fridge and I'm starting to mix the cake and create the cake.
Wow.
That's when I start to kind of put in the visualization of what is this cake gonna be. Whenever in the past when I've said I'm gonna make that cake, it never turns out to be that cake. Wow. Because what I've already done is I've not allowed room. I haven't allowed those muses that I have to come in and just like detangle everything and put it back together. So I really like to, I think as well as I've grown with my business, I've learned to be more intuitive. Like, and when I say intuitive, I listen to my inner self and my inner spirit and my inner self. And I think one thing that people have never, like something that my nan has said to me, actually, my grandmother said this to me a very, very long time ago, but I didn't actually get it up until like probably like early last year, is caking is your prayer.
See, I was actually thinking it sounds like cake, the actual baking process, it sounds like a very therapeutic process for you.
It
as
is.
well, because it's like, it sounds, I mean, I'm not a baker.
It's not a chore for me.
I cook.
Yeah.
Baking is one of those things that I'm like,
you have to think about it, innit?
Exactly. Like I have to be like, get the measurements. I have to know what kind of cake I want to bake. I have to think about that process. No. So the idea of like, you're just going to go into the fridge, take out the butter, and then start, as you're doing that, then the cake. Wow.
And for me, that's the thing. Like, cake is where I am just like, because my nan knows how talkative I am. Like, she knows I get distracted real easy. Like, I'm one of those people who I could start doing something, I start talking, and I'll make a mistake. And she noticed that very early on in my creative process. And she's always been like, Nastassja, when you're baking or whenever you're doing your artwork, even when I was in fashion, she was like, when you do your fashion, you need to remove that phone from you, switch off your phone, please, because you're making, I can see that you have great ideas, but you're getting distracted. So it's something that I've very much implemented into my work life, to the point where, even funny enough, last night my brother was like, when is the best time to call you? Because whenever I call you, I never get an instant response. And I'm just like, babes, when I'm working, I don't like any distractions. I actually just remove all electronic devices, and it's me and the cake. It's me, my machine, my new machine I just got recently. Her name is Toya.
Do you name all your machines?
I name all of my machines. I had Sandra.
Do you have conversations with them?
I have conversations with them.
Are they like your children?
They're not. I wouldn't want to say that my machine is like my child, because it's kind of just like I have to do a lot of petting. She's an extension of me. Whoa. She's the extension of me. And when I had Sandra, it's really funny, because when I have my friends come in the kitchen, and they are like, either, that's my time to kind of social. They understand that if I want to socialize with them, I actually have to come into her space. So I'll tell them, oh, okay, like you do this with the machine, or just watch this and watch the machine. And sometimes when I've asked them to watch the machine, and I can actually hear her telling me that, babes, it's over churning and this guy is not watching me. So like, it's crazy because I'm just like, I know when something's been over churned or it's coming close to it because it's that kind of connection. People just, you listening to this, you may be like, no, it's just a machine though. Like, fam, it's just a machine. No, but the machine, the way you treat your machine is it's how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
It's like, she's my baby. Like, if I mistreat her, she's not going to work to her fullest potential. But if I treat her right, me and her are going to have some times together. And that was like me and my last machine, Sandra. Me and Sandra had, we did bouts. Sandra grinded so many cakes for me. I can't even tell you how many. But my new machine, Toya, she's a new upgrade. She bigger, she wilder. And I'm just like, yeah, like easy, Toya, easy. And, it's for me, it's like that time where I have me, my machine, and just my intuitive spirit, my guides at my forefront. That is the best time because all I'm hearing is what we're gonna do with this. Yeah. And that sometimes it's like I won't even get the idea up until, there have been times where I haven't had the idea up until like 2 hours before the person's delivering the cake. And I'm just like, yo, like we got to work much faster from this. But one thing I've realized is like, for me, the whole kind of process with me building the cake, constructing, like measuring out, construction, then decorating, it's such a personal thing. Yeah. Because I'm not only getting my voice out, I'm also hearing what my customer wants. And that's the biggest thing. Like, it's getting to a point where I'm just like, sometimes when a customer is too much like calling me or texting me, how's my cake going? How's my cake going? What you're just doing is you're disturbing the actual design process, because I'm no longer designing for my highest being. I'm designing for what I think you want. And I don't, that's where the design process gets interrupted. Like, I don't design for what I think you want. I design for what I feel embodies you, basically. And there have been times where someone has said, oh, I thought you were going to do this. And I'm just like, you see it there? If you wanted that, you should have just said, I want that, you know? And that's probably the hardest part of the way I design cakes, is like, people are like, you're very fearless, because how do you know what your customer wants? Yeah, and I'm just like, you know what? There is time. It's listening to that intuition, that inner intuition, because there have been times where I've designed a cake to the brief that somebody said they want. And they're like, oh, I know I said I wanted that, but I thought you were going to do this and this. And you're just like, that's when I realized that people actually don't know what they want. People want the best of you. Meaning that when I design a cake, they actually want the best of me. It's, yes, they want what the color scheme that they've said, but with that color scheme, design the best of you. Yeah. Because they always want, and sometimes you have to say to person, I do say to customers, like, when you come to me, understand that that cake that you're showing me, that customer didn't even want that cake. They just said, do what you do. And when you say do what you do to Nastassja, Ms Sugar Plum, should do you wonders. It's when you want to control and say, process. I want the stripes there, I want this. That's when I'm just like, hey, you need to come into the studio and do that yourself. But when I think a lot of the customer, like my real stronghold customers now they've begun to understand the best way to get Ms Sugar Plum to do her best, or to do you like something spectacular, is say to her, do what you do best. And that's when those juices are just like, you know what, this is a no holds bar. You can have a theme and you can let me roll with it, but understand within that theme, don't think about it too much. It's that time when I'm thinking about something too much, I restrict myself and I restrict those muses inside me. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, if you don't know what to do, like, we don't know what to do. And it's just like, oh, that's when we waste a lot of time. But in that kind of moment, it's such a personal moment that it's all about just being free. And that's me voicing my other voice and saying what I need to say, but not without me speaking. That's why I really love the fact that two cakes look the same. There are certain styles that will look similar because obviously it's a technique and that's the way the technique comes out. But if you're talking about painting, like when I look at my very, very early work, it's like I was going through my very, very early work and it was all very drippy and very kind of drippy and kind of just stagnant in a place. And I can very much tell you that when I look at those, it was because I was in a place of, there was a lot of sorrow, but also there was like me trying to figure out where this was going and feeling very still within it and not knowing how much I could push it. And then when I see the graduation of each year and I'm just like, wow, like I'm actually coming out of my box. And there are moments they're like, oh, there's a moment of genius. How did that moment of genius occur? And then you went back to, and then you start to realize, then I've started to realize that there is an echo of time and there is an echo of like, this person does want to break out free, but there is still, you're still holding yourself back because you're not listening to something or you're being rushed at something and you need to understand that this and this is happening. So that's also a beautiful thing for me as an artist as well.
I mean, oh my God, is all I can say, because you've literally just taken us through this journey of, you know, I mean, like I said, to me, it literally just sounds like you really are not just a baker. And the whole process for you, you know, you're very, very creative, but you're also very, very spiritually in tuned in terms of how you go about the creativity of the cakes that you design. But I also want to kind of like bring it back to like the actual business. Yeah. You know, especially because, you know, you started the business how many years ago? 4 years ago?
Like officially papers will say it's around like 2013, 14.
Okay.
But in terms of me kind of like, I always say I wasn't really, was I really serious about it? It was kind of just like, my favorite like word is I was trying at something and seeing if it was going to work for me. And it was really, I would say in 2014, 15 that I was like, bam, bam, I'm going to be like.
What happened then?
Okay, so 2013, what happened was like, I've left Diesel 2012. I left Diesel and I was like, yeah, I'm going to this new company, blah, blah, blah. Got to this new company, got fired just under a year of being in this company because I called a manager who wasn't really, she was just there like temp manager. Over email, I called her a fire-breathing dragon because I was frustrated over a situation that was occurring, that I was, when someone starts throwing labels at me saying that, you know, like, you know, oh, I'm listening to this kind of music, I'm doing this. I was just like, yo, I mean, I'm not, you know, knowing like the stature of the company, I'm not listening to hip hop. That was somebody like, you know, and there was all these, and I got frustrated and I expressed this over an email. They opened my emails and found this. Like I laugh at this story all the time. And whenever I tell this story, people are just like, well, people have done much worse in companies. And I just like, it was my time in it. And you know, when I look back at that time, it was really, I had asked God, I remember saying to myself, or in my own space and time in that moment, I think it was on a bus journey, I was like, God, I just want to be the greatest cake baker. I want to have a cake business. And God answered that prayer in ways that I did not expect. It was just like, hey, not like that. You know, because my fear then was kind of just like, okay, how am I going to support my cake business? I don't have a job. And it, you know, I spent like a good kind of week just crying about it because I just was like, this is not the way, this is not the script I had given myself. You know, I had a different kind of script, but obviously God's script is always greater and bolder. And we must carry it, you know. So it was in the kind of those weeks that I was unemployed. I went to sign on and I was very disgruntled with the people signing on because like, I was just like, look, my rap, they would always tell me like, you know, like, have you got an education? I was just like, fam, I've got a degree. I've got like this, I got like all of these. And I got really disgruntled and I was like, yo, like how's somebody just telling me like, I must go for lower than what I know I'm worth. But at the same time, I remember just sitting there and I was just like, I remember applying for a job at Vogue. It was a PA assistant job, and I had got through the phone interview, and it was like the main interview now. And then I really thought to myself, man, I said to God that I want to be a cake baker. Why the heck am I going back into full-time employment? Do I actually want to go back in full-time employment? And the answer was no. And at that point, I called up the guy at Vogue called me and said, yeah, I just want to call you, confirm your interview and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I actually don't want it.
Ooh,
and he was like,
down Vogue before you even got to the interview.
Trust me, like working for Vogue in my, like, if you asked me my previous fashion life, that was my ultimate dream. And I said, no, it's not what I want to do. And he was like, are you sure? You seem like a great candidate. You've been, like, I was like, no. He was like, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to be a cake baker. And he was like, okay, well, good luck. And I was like,
I bet he has a story to tell and he's doing a party.
Yeah, and instead, I then remember on that day, during that time, I said, God, I just want a part-time job. I want a part-time job that I will figure my cake stuff out whilst I'm at that part-time job. And lo and behold, like I'm repeating this, and I'm just like, Nastassja, like God always comes true for you. I don't even know. And I got a part-time job. The company that I worked for, let me tell you, I was so honest. It was pivotal, and they're another great family that I went there's certain workplaces, I don't even call them workplaces. I walked into a family that really appreciated me. And let me tell you, like, my family at Pivotal was like, it was like Diesel all over again, but like a higher level of Diesel, because these people, I remember going for the interview, and my manager, who was called JB, which was very funny because I knew that was the place for me, because one of my friends' names is JB. Like outside of work, and the other office manager that I worked with, like who is we worked as a team, her name was Abby, and those are two of my best friends outside of work. So working with a JB and Abby inside work, I was like, okay, this was meant for me. So I remember having an interview with JB, and he was just like, yeah, so Nastassja, tell me what you want to do. And I was like, I told him, this is what I've been doing. This is, I'm trying to build my company, the Indulgent Sugar Plum, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm going to be here for 10 years, 3 years, but let me tell you, I think I'm going to be here with you for 2 years, maybe 3. But out of those 2 years, I can guarantee you I'll give you the best office manager service that you've ever seen before. And he was like, okay, cool, you've got the job.
Nice.
And I was that honest with him, because I was like, my real passion is to build. I want to build my company. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I just need the time and the space. And this job will give me the ample time because it's part-time, and I'll be able to really kind of progress myself.
Going back to the business of the cake, first of all, the name. I so love the name. Like, because one of the things that I feel like a lot of people don't think about, they don't consider, is the name of your business.
Okay.
And I've heard so many business names, and then you're like, and then when the person tells you what the business is, you're kind of like, but with the Indulgent Sugar Plum, it kind of tells, I mean, first of all, it just screams luxury to me.
Okay. Funny that you're saying this. If I tell you how many people told me that my name was crap or shit, or it needs bakery on the end, or it needs cakes on the end, I was like, no, it doesn't.
No.
How many of like people that I know, like friends, were just like, oh, I don't think that screams cakes. And I was like, well, it's not supposed to.
But that's the good thing about the brand, yeah, because then, when you evolve and when your brand develops beyond cakes.
And this is the thing, like I don't see my company just as cakes. And this is the thing that people never understand. Like, and it's still something that I think is, it's a teaching process, and it's a learning process. And I love that people like, especially you, and someone who, like, in the food industry, I actually really look up to you in terms of like the way you've built like your brand is you already see it that, hold on, this is not just about cakes.
No.
Like, it doesn't, she does cakes, but I know it's more than cakes.
So much, it's beyond cakes.
And that's the thing. And I never wanted to put bakery at the end of it. I never wanted to put cakes or cookies or anything, because I just, like I said, growing up, I always said bakers were like not in that I feel like bakers are lame now. Don't get me wrong, I'm far from it. I'm a baker. Like, I bake myself. Bakers are not lame. But it was the fact that, like, I didn't want it to be sugar plum cakes, or it would just be like, that's all it's saying, that's the end of the line. Cakes is an end of the line, right? So the way the name came about, very, very funny as well. Like growing up, like my favorite fruit is a plum, right? Okay. It was a plum because in the first house the first full house that my nan got, she still lives in there now. She's been there for like 30 odd years. We had a plum tree in the garden, and like used to eat plums all the time. And that was something that my family always said, oh, it reminds us of home, because in like going back home, they don't know what buying fruit is because they've got fruit trees. Like they're like, we got a mango. When I go back home, there's a mango tree, avocado tree, pomegranate tree, apple tree, orange tree. They've got pineapples, bananas, all of these things grow in their yard. So buying fruit for them is like buying grapes. Like buying apples, because it's not something that is grown in exotic countries. But buying all of those exotic fruits, they're just like, who? So for my family, it was like, oh, it's been like back at home where we have like plum tree, because we never bought plums. Like we used to get plums like mad amounts, to the point where like birds are eating them. So there was and then one time, like one season, the plums stopped growing, and it was just like the plum tree stopped giving us plums.
I'm done.
And like the tree was
I'm
like,
over
but
it.
we didn't. There were so many times that everybody in our family was like, oh, it's not growing plums anymore, let's pluck it out. And my nan was like, no, keep in the tree. So as a child, there was really like, my uncle used to work in a magazine factory, and he always used to come like on a weekend, Saturday morning, and I just used to make him tea, and because he always knew I baked, so it'd be like, oh, Nastassja, and go and make me some tea and bring me some of that cake you've made, right? So he knows like he's coming to get cake. So every time he used to come around, I always used to spill sugar in front of him. And it was just like the most bizarre thing. But I always used to spill sugar in the house. And like he then sat up and said, out of nowhere, he said, one day your life is going to be so sweet, you're not going to recognize it. Ooh. And I was just like, really, Uncle? His name is Valentine, but we call him Uncle Tiny because he's like was short. Like so I was like, Uncle Tiny, and it was like, your life is gonna, you see. And he kind of just went into this kind of, he just said, your life is gonna be so sweet, you're never gonna recognize it. And I was just like, oh, okay. So as I'm building my business now, I'm thinking of names, and I'm just like, I don't know, like my favorite. And I was just like, one day I just sat there and went, Sugar Plum. Because I always spill sugar, and my favorite my favorite fruit is a plum. And the reason why I then put the plum on the end of it, there was this one, like still now, it went for years without producing plums, right? This one season, out of nowhere, we got a whole heap of plums. It started producing plums again. And that's when I kind of knew, I don't know, there's something that came to me and said, the Indulgent Sugar Plum, because it was that kind of notion of something that gave you so much and then taking a break and then rejuvenating itself by itself. Lovely. Like literally, I was just like, that shows that there is an unseen power that we think when something's done, it's actually not done. Yeah. And so that's where it was originally called the Sugar Plum. And then what happened was, I'm setting up my business on like, not Instagram, Facebook. It was the years of only Facebook. So I've jumped onto Facebook. I'm starting to put my business out there and stuff. And I get this email from this lady, or a Facebook message from this lady saying, oh, you've stolen my business. I've like, it's my business name. I'm the one who's got the license to use the Sugar Plum and blah, blah, blah.
She was American.
And she was American.
Yeah.
And at this point,
Americans are so good at trademarking things. That's a lesson that we need to learn here in the UK.
She had trademarked this, and she was just like, look, these are my documents. I don't want to get in an argument with you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like here quivering in my boots, and I'm just like, I'm not even... Like, I don't even, like, I'm not even, I'm not even a business. I'm just trying. And we had a bit of back and forth, and I was talking to my friend, and then in my slogan, I said, I think my slogan at that time, if I remember correctly, it was something like, in the Sugar Plum, we make cakes to indulge you, or something like that, cakes for indulgence or something like that. So after playing around, then afterwards, I was just like, what am I going to call my name? I don't want to remove the Sugar Plum because it means something to me. It actually has a meaning for me. And then I kind of was skirting around names. And then I finally thought, hold on, the Indulgent Sugar Plum, we can take it out of like the because I have a manifesto, not a manifesto. I have a manifesto. I'll take it out of that. And then everybody was like, it doesn't work as much. It don't ring nice like the Sugar Plum. And then I was like, well, in my head, I was like, oh, it's going to take time to get used to, because I love the abbreviation of the Sugar Plum, because it was it meant teaspoon, like TSP. So it was like it then had that notion of baking a
probably
teaspoon.
why she trademarked
it. And so I was just like I was rolling my eyes and all sorts. I was like, now it's called the Indulgent Sugar Plum, and it was like TSP, and my sister would always go TISP. And I was just like, oh, it didn't. But then again, I was just like, you know what, let's roll with it. If I need to change it, you know what, as my business grows, it will tell me whether it needs to change or not. And I started just running with the Indulgent Sugar Plum. Like I said, then people started telling me it's not going to work, blah, 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 blah. But the more I kind of grew, everybody was just like, that's such a cool name. Like, and that, like, I'm meeting you, and everybody's like, that's such a cool name. And I was just like, let me tell you, if I tell you like the real story behind this name. So that's where
but that's the thing about life, isn't it? Especially as an entrepreneur, and especially, you know, just the way family and friends, they mean well, but sometimes the feedback they're giving you doesn't go in line with what you know to be true about what you're trying to create and what you're trying to build. And sometimes it's really about being able to be like, actually, do you know what? No. Like, in as much as I value, but I know what I'm trying to do. And like you said, and I think that's the great thing about, you know, being open to the fact that actually, as my business grows, as my business evolves, I can determine if I need to rebrand, if I need to make changes, or actually if this is the name that suits my business. And right now, I mean, as somebody who's very new to the business, who's new to the brand, and I see those cakes, now when I see your cakes, I know it's the Indulgent Sugar Plum. I know that. Can nobody else come and tell me this is a cake by Tokunbo? I'll be like...
And that's
from where, how,
and you know, like, just the way I built my business. And I did go I did kind of backward my business, and I did this more for a reason of myself. When I say backward a business, right now I'm more into the marketing of my business, whereas a lot of brands that come out now, they're very much into marketing first and product later. Like, not later, but product isn't such a huge thing. They'll have 2-3 products, and then they'll really focus on the look and the thing. I mean, in the early 2010 kind of era, in this kind of decade, social media was just more like just Facebook. So I really built my or I cultivated it during those eras. But now we've got like the TikTok, the IG,
so much of that, right?
the Snapchats and all of this, and it's just like there's a new platform each moment. But the original was the Facebook, right? So building up my brand from that, I really wanted to focus on what the brand, the identity of the brand, because coming from a fashion background, it's like you could have any name whatsoever, but it's the identity of the actual brand. And that's something that I learned in fashion, that a brand, a name can be plucked from the sky at any time, but your identity is something that cannot be. And that's the era I grew up in, like, and I really was cultivated in. Like, I know a Balenciaga from a Versace, you know, that's without, take away the name. Let's take away the labels, like just the name of the labels. Knowing those differences just by looking at the garment in itself and the structure, for me, that's a brand. And that's what I have built. I've built an identity And that identity has now become its own brand without me having to stick labels and say, this is the Indulgent Sugar Plum sticker. So you've got to know, like I get people worldwide saying, I know when somebody has copied an Indulgent Sugar Plum. I know that's Ms Sugar Plum right there. You can't mess with that because that's not you. Yeah, that's not you. That I know that voice because that voice is that person, and she's the only person that can do what she does, and she's got such a strong identity without her even sticking any label. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to cultivate first. I wanted to cultivate an identity so strong that wherever you are in the world, you cannot deny it. You cannot deny it. A lot of people, I know a lot of my friends back in the day were just like, no, Nastassja, like you shouldn't do that. Like, let's build your brand. Let's build like the branding first. Let's get the branding and the marketing right. And I was like, the fact is, you can do all of that branding and marketing right now, but I know me. As much as I know me, and everybody, if you ask my family, I change my mind like I change my knickers, but not even my knickers. Let's not say I change my mind like I change my knickers. I change my mind like the wind changes. At any given time, Nastassja could be like, no, I don't like that. I do it with my cake. Sometimes I'll start a design. I'll be like, I've spent like 2 hours on this thing and I don't like it. I'm going to scrape it off. Wow. That's how I am. That's how meticulous I am. So I wanted to really kind of be like, if I build the marketing and the identity, that's a lot of money invested in something that I probably won't like in a couple of years' time, and that we've changed and evolved, and I don't want to be that way. I really want to work in the way that I know how to, and I'm very organic, and I go with the feeling. I should really go with the feeling with all of my life, but when it comes to my work life, I really, my work life, I really go with the feeling. And I really went with I so knew that I wanted to build my identity first, because I didn't have a cake voice. I didn't have I knew my artistic voice. And when I did start baking, I was doing all the fondant stuff. And I can tell you that if I still did fondant, I wouldn't be in the baking industry if I still had to do fondant right now, because that is beyond me. What I love to do is paint on cakes. I like to draw. I like to really get that part of me onto the cakes and paint murals and do all of that. That's what I love doing. I don't like rolling out fondant and cutting out things and stick it. No, that's not me.
Okay, for people who don't know Ms Sugar Plum and don't know your cakes, how would you describe your cake? I mean, what are some of the words or some of the ways that you would describe your cake to make people be like, yes, that's a Ms Sugar Plum cake right there?
One of the words I would say is architectural. Yeah.
Because your cake is long.
Don't
I'm still trying to figure out how
height is like one of the height is the signature of the cake, because I don't think anybody will attempt. And
I think and again, the fact that you even have a signature attached to your cake, it's so rare.
It is very,
because I don't think I've ever come across another baker who literally I can look at their cakes and be like, yeah, that's a signature. This is just like, oh, this person bakes really nice cakes or nice looking cakes. Yeah. But with you, because of the height and the designs, I'm like, okay, yeah.
So I have a very strong signature, and like I said, that was the first thing I wanted to cultivate within my business. It needed a signature. It needed the way I've worked with my business is everything that you would do as a fashion designer, I've done, or a designer. Let's not just say fashion designer. Everything that you do as a designer, I've done as a cake art. I've brought that, translated it into the cake world. Because one of the things I noticed when I was coming into this industry is like, no cake artist has a signature. Like they're beautiful cakes, but I couldn't care less who baked them. Yeah. Like, and for me, I want people to care who's done them. I want people to go, well, this is my cake by the Indulgent Sugar Plum. Yes. Yeah. I want that. Yeah. I want that, and I crave that. I want people to be like,
you want the accolades that artists get for their work.
I want,
literally.
Yo, I didn't come to
we didn't just come to bake.
No, we didn't come to. I actually came to kill myself for cake. Like, you didn't come to kill yourself, but Nastassja will kill her. Like, this is the one thing that, like, when I entered this industry, I was like, as much as I want to say I don't want all the accolades, I want to show that I can have all the accolades without having that massive marketing campaign, that massive thing. Yes, the branding now is for me, it's now like, yeah, babes, you got the signature. Now it's time to work on the marketing. Let's do the back work now. And that's where I am currently in working on the marketing and the how I really want this to present it as a whole, because we've got the signature down. And that's one thing, like, when I came into the industry, I was just like, so who did this cake? Who is the artist behind? I want to know. And as much as, like, me being in the industry now, there are definite, like, cake artists out there that I can definitely see that cake and go, I know that's Have Some Cake. I know that's Jasmine Ray. I know because I've been exposed to that. But when we because I can take away their names and I can line myself up with them, and everybody can go, well, that's Ms Sugar Plum, that's this person, that's this person. I know that. And that was the main thing for me, that in this industry, in the cake industry, I wanted to take away my my company name, but then have the cake there and see if people would recognize it just without, and be like, oh, that's this company, and I've got that. Yeah, and,
definitely. Definitely.
So yes, architectural is one of the words I would use to describe my cakes. I would say creative. And then I would say, this is really hard actually, whimsical.
Yeah.
Thought-provoking. I want to say futuristic, but it's not futuristic. It's ahead of its time. And when I say it's ahead of its time, it's like, it's very daring in what I do. And when I say ahead of its time, it's like, people are now beginning to understand what I'm doing. They are doing, this is edible art. This is like cakes that, I've been to events now. Like, I never used to go to events where people would order my cakes from, but now I've been to events where my cakes go to. And I one of the things is I needed to start doing that to see the way that people treat the way that people treat the cake and the way they react. And let me tell you, 9 times out of 10, when people are like, yeah, we're cutting the cake, people are like, oh, that's the cake. I thought that was just like, I thought that was a sculpture. I was just like, I want the sculpture in my house. Like, and that's the way people treat it. People are very kind of, because people have the not like.
Ooh, I just got a new business idea for you.
Okay, we need to discuss. So it's very kind of like, people don't recognize it's cake because it's something that they've never seen before, which is amazing, because what they know as cake is like something short with a happy birthday on it. That's one thing I don't really like doing. I don't really like writing happy birthday on my cakes because it takes away the attraction. You see the writing and it's just like, oh, it's happy birthday. I like to really retract from doing that and using toppers and other ways to express it. My kind of key thing is like, everybody knows whose birthday it is though. But then again, I know what it feels. It's that nostalgic, I want my name on it, cool kind of thing. So very kind of daring and ahead of its time kind of thing. And
really, I like what you said earlier as well about the fact that, your cake is a centerpiece in itself. So it's literally, because the only time you tend to see cakes as centerpieces are at weddings.
Yeah.
So the fact that, you're having a birthday party and then there's something there that people don't even recognize as cake. Yeah. And literally is like a discussion topic, or, when it comes to time to cutting the cake, people are like, oh, I was literally like, I want that for my home.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I create cakes for an experience. I create cakes for people just to look at. I create cakes for people just to
see. I literally would be like, if I got one of your cakes,
people don't cut them. And this is the thing. I've been to so many events.
I'll be like, okay, this is my birthday cake, and this is the cake yours gonna eat.
And this is what happens. Like, I go to events and I see that there's like normal birthday cakes and then there's my cake. I'm just like, yo, and I asked the person, the celebrant, like, yo, what's going on? Like, I thought I was the only. They're like, no, Nastassja, you are for connoisseurs. This is for everybody else.
I'm a connoisseur.
Like, oh, is that what
Because I'm like, I cannot be sharing Ms Sugar Plum cake with just anybody.
And that's what people do. People order my cakes as a centerpiece, as like, yo, this is luxe. Like, can you dig this? Like, is this what? And I've seen people be very, and you know what I love? Like, taking away the fact that I've even baked it. I love making people feel special.
Yeah.
I love the fact that people will feel like, all of you people can't get this because this is mine. Like, this is mine. This is special. And that's what I love. And that's what I live for. I live for those kind of moments where people can reflect and say, did you remember my birthday cake? And it's mad because people say this to me all the time. Do you remember the birthday cake you made? And I'm like, girl, I've made so many cakes. But obviously there are cakes that really stand out to me.
Yeah.
But that moment where that person feels like, I've just taken away so many issues that they've been having. They're not even thinking about what happened yesterday. They're not thinking about what happens tomorrow. In that moment, they are the most godlike, queen-like person, king-like person. Yeah. Those are moments I live for. Being able to just heal people and just them being able to talk about the cake forever and ever and ever because of how beautiful it was, and then them eating it and how they're still eating it, and they're like, they're not knowing that, oh, we've got so much cake. It's just those are the moments I honestly live for. Let's just take away the fact that my cakes are beautiful. Just making people feel that special. Yeah. That's, people say, we always ask, what's your purpose in life? If I'm living it. And that for me is the takeaway from my business. It's always heartbreaking if someone says, oh, this happened and that happened. But let me tell you, like, I'm one of those people who, it's not, sometimes we're like, oh, how much is this and how much is that? People, I love giving my customers 110%, like not even 100, they get like 1,000 from me. And I always hope that whenever someone experiences me, like they have got so much joy, and because I always enjoy making cake. Like a friend asked me recently, Nastassja, I thought you would be over your cakes by now. I'm not over it because how do I get over something so much like this? The time I think I'll be, honestly, the time I'll be over my cakes is like when I go meet my maker. That's the time. But even at that, I can officially go and say, Lord, like, that was amazing. Can we get a rewind? Can I get a rewind?
Okay, but, I mean, one of the things I really want to also touch on is like in terms of how the business has developed.
Yeah.
So kind of talking about, there's a lot of great things that you've talked about in terms of building your brand. And I love, because a lot of people don't understand the concept of business. People think, oh, I'm a baker. So I'm going to go into business. I'm going to make beautiful cakes. I'm going to make lots of money.
It's hard.
And then the reality is
business isn't beautiful. Business is one thing that I really, really want to stress on is business. A great business is built on great failures.
Ooh, I like that.
And when I say great business is built on great failures, is one of the things I would like very candid and open, like this 2019 has taught me that, and it's taught me the value of what it's like to fail, because as much as I put it out, like you're saying, like you put out beautiful work and you're talking about all the beautiful, ugly aspects of it, is like when you fail, it's like the hardest, like, and I've 2019.
Can you tell us some about one of your biggest failures and what was the lesson that you learned from that experience or from that moment?
How long we got? Okay.
Like just kind of like pinpoint, because like you said, there's so many failures. I mean, I know that I've had so many failures, and we were talking about this earlier on, where people don't always see the failures. And I know I was watching your Instagram stories the other days, and you were just having a silly moment. We're like, oh, what is this cake gonna look like? How are we gonna do this? And I was just like, oh my god, this is so fun, and I could not wait to come back the next day to see what the cake looked like.
So I think first and foremost is, I think anybody that, when I was I have so much high expectations of myself to the point where my high expectations can literally kill me. Like, because I'm not expecting to fail. I don't think nobody wakes up and expects to fail. What we expect is pure greatness through and throughout of what we literally do. Failure, like, one thing I want to also stress or want to say is, since I built my business, I haven't yet taken out a startup loan. And
Okay.
for a lot of people, this may be surprising. Like, rah, how's she been running? Like, I've run on literally self-funding myself, meaning that I did a lot of part-time jobs, and I've done, I've just literally work. Like, through my part-time jobs, from my full-time jobs, I'm just working. And the reason being that is when I was offered a lot of loans, I didn't actually know what it was going to go into. I've been very close to signing on a lot of dotted lines. But the one thing I've always asked myself is, okay, cool, you've got all of this money. Like, what are you going to do? And one of the biggest reasons that I didn't take a loan out is because I had personal debt. And what I didn't want that loan to go into paying my personal debt, because that would have just put me back. So I said to myself, you know what, let me work out all of my own debts that I have accumulated in life because of me just wanting to spend and other issues and blah blah blah. And then when I've got to a stage where I know, okay, this is Saturday, I know where the money is going to go into. That's me now. Yeah. And that's a lot of people thinking, but she's been on the show and da, 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 da. Yeah, I've been doing that, but understand that.
What show for?
I'm featured on Extreme Cake Makers on Channel 4, and they found me very, very early on in my career. And when I say early on, that was the moment that I was like, oh, okay, I got a cafe now. Yeah, like, maybe I'll still see if this is still working out for me. That's when they found me. That's when they were just like, oh, we like your cakes are very creative and out there. Cool. But in terms of the failures that I've made, like, some of the failures that I've made is one of my cakes dropped, right? And for any cake baker,
happened to me with jollof rice. Oh, sis.
Can we have a moment?
Can we have a moment?
Right. Okay. Like, for any cake baker out there, I want to say it's like I cried. Like, I can't tell you the immense amount of tears that I cried, because
I can relate. Especially when you've talked about the journey that you've taken.
And everybody's saying that you're a professional. This shouldn't be happening to professionals. Fam, Usain Bolt is a professional, and he did a false start on a global stage. Let's talk about that. Yeah,
I like that.
Serena Williams has been on many platforms, and she's been beaten many times to a grand slam. Let's talk about that. You know, let's talk about people producing the best body of work. Bodies of work and not getting.
And I think that's the thing. People don't really talk enough about failures.
Yeah. Let's talk about Oprah Winfrey doing how many films and being slammed for the many films that she's done. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Failures happen. And let me tell you that, it happening to me sitting here, I want to say to both of us, we're survivors.
We're survivors.
But I cried, and I want to say that the person who it happened to, and there's been a few other ones which I'm going to go into. I literally cried on the phone, and she was beautiful. Like, my customer was so beautiful about it. She was like, Nastassja, I saw the cake, and it tasted amazing though. Like, let me tell you, it was the most sought after cake. Even though we had another cake, let me tell you, that cake was left to the side. Everybody wanted the one that dropped on the floor. It didn't drop on the floor. It was cool, but they were like, that's the cake that everybody was running to. They were like, yo, I don't care what it looked like, but it looked beautiful and it dropped. But this cake was amazing, and they still want to order another cake from you. And I was like, okay. But she was just like, and all I'm hearing is the cake fell. Like, and all I'm thinking is like, God, I've been doing this for how long? Like, how did this happen? And it's not the how, it's really why and the lesson from it. Yeah. Okay, you did this. You start going. So I'm in my head. I'm retracing my steps of, did I do this right? I did this right. I did that right. I'm trying to calculate like where I went wrong. And the thing is, it's the lesson that I took from that is God saying that you can build that high, but you have to get your foundations right, baby girl. Baby girl, you can build anything that you want to, but you need to give yourself the right foundation. You need to work on that foundation. It's not like, yes, you've been doing it, but have your cakes ever been this tall? The answer is no. you're trying to reach a new height, meaning that you need to look at how strong your foundations are and really just get to grips. It's no longer, God is saying there's nothing wrong with you. Listen to what they said. The cake tasted amazing. The design was amazing. But we're going to go back to the beginning now. We need to go to the basics of what we would say is the basics is the foundation, because everything that we do is built on the strong foundation. Right now, you're building your house on the sands, and we need to come back to the rocks, baby girl. That's what I'm asking you to do. And sometimes we don't want to go back to the beginning because you're just like, oh, this is pulling me backwards, and now I've got this far.
I'm advanced now.
I'm
I've been on
advanced
this TV
now.
show. I have customers from all over the world.
But what that was saying to me is like, you got everything else going.
Yeah.
But what I need you to do is come back, and we need to, yes, you built this high, and remember you built those high because you got this inside it, this inside it, and this inside it. And it made me kind of think, and why I mentioned all of these other great celebrities or these great people is because they've experienced failure.
Yeah.
And that was my point. Like, that got me into a slump. So it got me into a slump that was so in my head that I actually started to become nervous about baking again or even constructing again. And when I say I was in my head, I'm in my head like, I don't know if I'm the right person for this job anymore. And that's when you start doing that, it was a confidence thing that had been shaved off of me. Even though I was trying to get back up, I was very nervous about getting back up. And I'm in my head, I'm just like, is this good? Can I go back to this? Is this made for me? And I had to really kind of be like, I'm not going to lie. I was very, very, it made me very down and out this year, to the point where I was like, I was asking myself, is this what I really want to do? Is this the kind of, and then it was having a conversation with the same customer who's a friend as well. And she was having a conversation. She was just like, Nastassja, everybody has bad days, man. Yeah. Like, it's not going to, like, did you not hear that they still want another cake for this day? Because it tasted so good. You know, we all have bad days, but take a break. Yeah. Like, just take a break. Take a time out and just take a break, because you're an awesome person. Yeah. You are like, this isn't the end of the world. Is it the end of the world? Did you die? She's like, did you die?
Oh my God, that's what I said to my daughter all the time.
And then she's like, did you die? And I was like, no, I'm not dead, but you know. And she was like, what? Like, don't be silly. And you start getting these things in your head that, oh, they're going to start telling this person, they're going to start telling that person, they're going to start telling that person. And then you lose the confidence. And then something else that happened was a customer saying, oh, like, the cake didn't taste like it usually did. And I was just like, oh, but I used the same recipe. I did the same thing. And it was crazy because that cake is the one that I ate the scraps and I was just like, this cake is dope. But obviously there was something there missing for her. So I'm like, in all of these things, I'm feeling like, man, what's going on? Like, yo, what is going on? I'm starting to think that, is there somebody out there, like, who's out there to get me? Or like, what am I doing wrong? And you start questioning. I started really, really questioning myself and really questioning my capabilities as like the designer, the architect, the baker, the creative that I am. And I just thought to myself, there's been a big, huge part of this year which I didn't really trust myself anymore. And I think, if I'm being honest, the way where I lost confidence is what people started tasting. Yeah. And that's really big for me. Like, and I realized that I was like, my thing is like, I'm baking, and if I'm nervous about baking, people are going to sense that through my baking. Yeah. And one thing I had to do for myself and to regain confidence, and I think what I know definitely happened, is like my personal life started slipping into like my self-doubt about like my business and if I really wanted to do the business, because I felt like I was taking hits. I was just like, yo, I'm taking shots right now. And then I had to come back within myself. And the first thing I started doing was asking myself, I need to regain my confidence again. I've lost this much confidence, and how can I recuperate this confidence? And it was just going back to basics again. Yeah. And going back to basics meant just bake in an environment where you have to bake and serve people again. That's it. And redoing that for myself. That's not me saying that I didn't think I was capable, but I needed that to feel that love again for myself. And it was like, I have a lot of love, but I'm not sure, and I'm very nervous about and really just starting to concentrate on what I want, like that particular thing.
I mean, it's so interesting because I had a similar experience. I mean, mine was just, I got to the point where I was just tired of cooking.
Yeah.
And I was literally tired of cooking for myself.
Yeah.
And then I didn't cook as much this year.
Yeah.
Especially over the summer. So it got to the point where I wasn't cooking. And then one day I was like, do you know what? Yeah, you need to eat. Like, you actually need to eat your own food, and you just need to get on with it.
Yeah.
And I cooked, and then over time, just kind of getting back to the stage where I was like, wait, I'm a dope chef. But I actually forget. And I think because I cook so much for people, and people are like, oh, this is great. But then when you're, especially I'm sure the same with you, when you're baking the same thing, or even you're baking different cakes, a cake is still essentially a cake. Yeah. And after you've had so many of your cakes, you're just like,
yeah. And I wouldn't say like it's a dip in it for us. What it is like sometimes you do the same thing over and over again, and you kind of missed one thing. You do it so often that you don't think you're missing something, but what you're actually missing is the love that you're doing into it. So that's where I kind of had to go back and just start loving it again and really shut down. I think I had like this year there's been so many changes for me, and there's been so many. I started off the year with a lot of negative voices, and those negative voices made me doubt myself to the point where I was just like, right, I need to clear this out, and I need to clear all of these voices out, because what they have done for me is become a truth that isn't true. Yeah. And that's made me become nervous in doing the one thing that I actually love. Which is baking. So that was it sounds like, rah, did that happen? Like, it's been a process, and like you said, people don't know that you're taking these shots and these hits, because you're just putting out the good stuff. The other part is just I've had a lot of opportunities come my way, and I've not taken them up as I should be. And I would say, like, I got really, especially with like just losing confidence in my work, that confidence came out of me, meaning that like literally when I'm offered these seats at the table, I felt like I wasn't deserving. I would turn up, some of them I'm turning up, but I'm retracting my personality, or I'm not showing like the best of. So people are thinking, well, she's not like, in my head, I'm thinking now, looking back and thinking, they're probably like, oh, we're meeting this person, she doesn't really mash up to what she's like on Instagram, but who does anyway? That's what I mean. But knowing that I could take up these spaces and I do deserve to be there because of my catalogue of work. So it's been a lot of kind of, especially this last quarter of the year, it's been really focusing on myself. As much as my business is there, I realized that. And I think one thing that I've noticed with a lot of business people is we don't really take care of self. We take care of the image of our businesses because that's what people know us for.
I mean, yeah.
And I think one thing I've really, really, really would want to say to anybody in like business is, without you, your business is not there. So really take care of you, because if you ain't correct, your business is not going to be correct. And that's one thing I learned from this year is, if I continue this way of thinking and being, I'm not going to have my business anymore. So I really need to restructure my mind to refocus on my business. And that's the biggest thing. And all of these things that have occurred this year is because I lost that confidence. But at the same time, I look at them as a blessing to have happened, because without having these failures, how do I know, how am I supposed to know if I'm top of the tier or bottom of the tier? These are things that I learned from. It means I need to build bigger foundations. It means that I always, that take, like you said, cooking for myself consistently and always know this is up to par. Knowing that you're always prepared. All of these things are good things to happen to you, because it keeps you on track. You don't know if you're going to be on track until something happens. Like I said, on the biggest forums, on the biggest stages, Beyonce will fall off like she fell during one of her performances. You get right back up. People, yes, she fell, but people always remember that you got up.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing I want to stress, that when you fail, get back up, because it's only building your business on better foundations, greater foundations.
I like that. Oh my God, it has been such a pleasure. Like, I mean, I feel like we could like carry on.
Yeah, no, I could like talk for days. I could talk for days. But
no, but it's so great, because I think one thing that I'm the kind of person that I feel like I'm very intuitive as well. Yeah. And I like to vibe on people's energy. And like I said, you know, we were on a panel together, but we didn't really get to have much of a conversation. Yeah. But there was just so much about your energy that I was like, I need to eat your cake first of all. I was like, I need to eat this cake. Yeah. Like, I need to make it happen. And you know, we've been trying to actually meet her for months.
They're like, it's going crazy.
And then the universe was just like, no, she's meant to be here on the sofa with me and on the couch with me. And I'm just so, you know, it's been such an amazing pleasure having you on. You. I just want to end, like, if there was what's been your biggest kind of like lesson, or what was the best advice that you've received about starting a business, running a business, growing a business? And if somebody came up to you and were like, Nastassja, I want to be a baker, I want to start a cake business, what would be the advice you would give that person?
I'm such a huge believer. I'm such a big advocate of the organic process. My favorite story of all time is the tortoise and the hare. And once you adopt this process, you will understand, like, for me, it's always about it, like, my business is about longevity. Yeah. And yes, in this world of social media where we see instant gratification, we forget that Oprah started off like in how many years ago?
Yeah,
like
decades ago.
But she has like the most immense longevity. And it's because we don't like the slow burners, because we're just like, when is it going to happen? But I'm such a huge advocate of organic process and finding yourself. One of the biggest things that people always want is like, Nastassja, like, I want to work with you because, you know, I want to really up my cake skills and I want to learn how to decorate like you. Everybody has a voice and every voice is different. And I believe that's just spending time with yourself. And the way I've grown my business to the point where now I'm kind of looking into the marketing, people would be like, oh, you're so slow on it, but I think I'm just right on time. I'm on time for myself because I know myself better than anybody before, like I did before, like let's say like 3 years ago. I know myself much better. I know when to say yes and I know when to say no, and don't be afraid to fail. Failure creates so much opportunities for you, because through failure you see your potholes that you can mend yourself, and failure is when you can just be very open to start. My favorite thing right now is just manifest what you actually really, really want. Out of failure comes determination to always want to do better, and that's one thing I found. So it would fail again, and take time to know yourself. And be organic, be like a plant, be like a tree. A tree don't want to be nothing but a tree. And it has its seasons. So that's what I would put out there.
Wow. Well, thank you, Ms Sugar Plum, for coming on the Tokunbo Chronicles. What's the best way for people to connect with you and find out about how they can be involved in maybe getting, a centerpiece cake for their next event, whether it's a wedding, a birthday, christening?
So you can get in touch with me via most social media platforms and my website, and you can call me. My number is everywhere on the end. Just Google me.
And what's the social media handle?
So Google me. You can Google the Indulgent Sugar Plum and I'll come up. My social media handles on Facebook, it's the Indulgent Sugar Plum Limited. On Twitter, I hardly use Twitter. Sorry, I'm Twitter. You know what? I'm so weak-hearted. Like this year, one of my things is to be a bit more vocal on all of my platforms. I use IG a lot. So on Twitter, I think I'm the _indulgent_SP, something like that. But if you type into Twitter, the Indulgent Sugar Plum, I'll come up. On my favorite one, which is IG, is Ms, which is MS_sugar_plum, or once again, just search the Indulgent Sugar Plum in your search engines. And then on our website, where you can order off our website too, which is www.theindulgentsugarplum.com.
Okay, did you guys get that? And no, trust me, you want to go check her out. Like, even before this episode is over, just Google the Indulgent Sugar Plum and see some of the masterpieces she's created. Because that's essentially what they are. They're masterpieces. They're not even cakes. And like I said, one of the reasons why I've not ordered mine yet, because even for my birthday, I was literally like, I wanted to order one, but then I did not want to share. So I'm literally just like, I think I'm just going to order one for myself first.
Yeah,
and
of course, like, and just small indulgence, small indulgence.
Right,
yeah, that's
right. I might have to share with my, family, but nobody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and please do give me some feedback. What you loved about this episode. Hope you got some value. If there's anything else that you want to hear, if there's any particular topic that you want us to explore, like I said, the Tokunbo Chronicles is really about connecting to people's stories. So finding about who they are, who they wanted to be, where they are, and where they're trying to go to. I think for me, from what I've seen of you, you are an artist that whatever canvas you are given, you are going to create great masterpieces.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. Like, I know I don't, did get into this, but like, honestly, even when I met you at that panel, I honestly look up to you because,
oh my God, thank you.
You know what? Because one of the things that in the industry of just food and just seeing a Black woman do what she's doing, and she's putting all of her passion. And one thing I love about Tokunbo, if you meet Tokunbo embodies the word passion.
Thank you.
Tokunbo is like, when I heard you speak, I was like, God damn, that woman is passion. She is passion, like through and through out. And thank you for having me. It's like
you're
such
making
a
me
pleasure.
blush. It's been so good. Definitely have to come back.
Yes.
But for now, I'm about to go get me some sugar plum brownies. Yeah. We're gonna have a jollof and cake day.
Yes,
we're moving from tea and cake.
Yeah, no, I've been excited about this day. No, I'm like on my jollof thing today.
We're gonna have to put that on our calendar, like a monthly thing.
Yeah, I think it's gonna become a thing.
It's gonna be a thing. Like jollof and cake. You heard it from us first. Take care, guys, and speak to you soon.